Hey there, this is Julian David with Liquid Sonics. Welcome to this walkthrough video of Tai Chi, the next generation ensemble character reverb from Reverb Foundry, which has now joined Liquid Sonics. In this video, we'll take the time to explore all of the modules of this flagship reverb so that by the end you feel confident that you can harness it to its full potential in your next production. Before we dive deep into the plugin building blocks and controls though, let's audition just a few factory presets to give you an idea of Tai Chi's sonic potential. During the development of Tai Chi, Matt Hill, Liquid Sonics' founder and developer, had the vision of creating a powerful ensemble reverb inspired by some of his old-time favorites, but packed with modern production tools that could support the higher surround channel count needs of Atmos workflows. Tai Chi harks back to the lush chorus of the Lexicon 224 and detailed multiband reverb editing of TC-VSS algorithms, but it is not an emulation or reproduction of any particular hardware or algorithm. What really sets Tai Chi apart from the pack is a highly imaginative and useful set of onboard sound design options fully integrated into the reverb itself. These features include dynamics processors, multiband filters, rich chorus, and Fidelity tools. Joining other Liquid Sonics reverb plugins such as Cinematic Rooms, Seventh Heaven, Luscious Plates, and HD Cart, Tai Chi is ready for Dolby Atmos and scales to channel formats up to 7.1.6. Alright then, let's get a broad stroke overview of the user interface. There are 4 sections that persist at all times: preset management and settings, mix and level controls, contouring, and multiband decay time controls. The 5 upper tabs provide access to additional reverb parameters: the master, advanced, dynamics, fidelity, and the equalizer. The plugin view defaults to the master tab, and that's a great place to start. The master tab provides the basic controls, including the reverb time, pre-delay, width, and reflection controls, including roll-off filtering. Reverb time is the time taken for the reverb to decay to 60 dB below its maximum. The pre-delay places a delay before the reverb to separate it from the dry sound. The pre-delay can be conveniently tempo synced to your DAW via the metronome icon. The reverb width is implemented via a simple mid-side cut and boost approach, affecting both the reflections and the late reverb. Tai Chi comes with a comprehensive set of reflection layouts and patterns. Choose an environment from the drop-down menu first, then adjust the reflection pattern to control the reverb properties in more detail. Greater letters represent greater reflectivity, higher numbers for positions further away. Spacing affects the gaps between individual reflections to help create the perception of size, ranging from very tight rooms to huge cathedrals or outdoor environments. The roll-off filter slope and frequency parameters control the high-frequency content of the reflections. While we're looking at fundamental parameters, let's quickly talk about the mix and level controls on the top right side of the plugin interface. Here are your controls for the dry-wet mix, the blend between reflections and reverb, as well as a master output gain of the plugin. Above those, you'll find an output meter that scales up and down depending on the channel format you're working in. So far, we've discussed pretty common reverb parameters that you might know from other plugins. Let's now jump into some of Tai Chi's more unique features. The multiband reverb time multipliers at the bottom work in conjunction with the more conventional treble and bass contouring on the right side. Tai Chi can split into 3 or 4 bands, or the crossovers can be disabled entirely for a more traditional reverb style using contouring. Together, these controls offer massive potential for anything from natural decays to creative sound design. The multiband multipliers are great for fitting the reverb into a busy mix. For example, pushing the mid and high bands on a reverb for guitars and vocals can help bring out the individual character and make those instruments cut through better. The multiband processing also invites more adventurous reverb styles for sound design, where thin bands of reverb can decay at wildly different rates. Note that the more bands used, the more CPU is consumed. If you don't need to use the multiband controls in a preset, simply disable them to reduce CPU load. You can adjust the split points and decay time multipliers by simply clicking and dragging in the visual window. Alternatively, enter precise values by clicking the numerical values in the table below. Now that we've covered the contouring and multiband options, let's now take a deeper dive into Reverb Sound Design Bliss, starting with the Advanced tab. Here, you'll find deeper controls of the reverb's character and how it develops over time. Density controls whether the reverb sounds very specular or smooth. Low density values, especially when combined with low diffusion, make for sparser initial reverberation. Higher values, on the other hand, produce a thicker reverb. Synths, brass, and other sustained instruments can benefit from specular styles as the reverb is less heavy, while drums or other sources with strong transients typically require a thicker, smoother reverb. Let's hear the density effect on a drum loop. Spread determines how rapidly reverb builds to its maximum level and how smooth it sounds during onset and decay. Low values are ideal for tight rooms. High values are suitable for halls or other large spaces that develop more slowly. To hear the effect this parameter has, let's listen to a vocal track that I'm sending to another instance of Tai Chi.
Down the road, clinging on to what I know. But if you hold me, I'll let go. This illusion of control. This illusion of control.
Diffusion applies smoothing to your reverb or reflections and is another tool to help with the illusion of size because it creates a unique blooming effect. The diffusion control sets the amount of smoothing, while the diffusion size parameter determines the time for the diffusion to bloom. Note that you can independently control the diffusion of the reflections and the late reverb. Clicking the early/late button switches between the two sets of parameters. Coming back to the drum loop we heard earlier, let's explore the diffusion parameters. The Advanced tab is also the place to find one of Tai Chi's signature features, the chorus. Being what's known as an ensemble reverb, the chorus in Tai Chi is capable of producing wonderfully rich and thick modulation. You might recognize this style of reverb if you've ever used a Lexicon 224 with the chorusing set to a high level. And you can hear the effect on iconic Vangelis synth patches, for example. However, Tai Chi has much more internal reverb memory and many more delay modulators available than classic verbs did, and it uses a very different algorithm, so you can push the thickening effect pretty hard without the reverb becoming pitchy. Tai Chi offers 3 different chorus modes: Enrich, Drift, and Detune. Enrich is the default mode for deep and rich chorusing by adding gentle motion without excessive pitch changes. Drift desyncs the reverb loop chorus to introduce random pitch changes that gently drift the pitch as the reverb decays. Detune rapidly blurs the audio spectrum, especially when you combine it with a high modulation rate. In addition, you can toggle Thicken Chorus to increase the number of modulators for an even richer chorus. With that in mind, have a listen to how Tai Chi can enrich an acoustic guitar part. The three continuous controls here are the amount dial, the chorus rate, and the wander parameter. The rate not only determines the base rate of the modulation, but can also affect the perceived depth of the chorus, particularly when used with the detune mode. Wander introduces a type of modulation often associated with the classic random Hall algorithm for a coarse, chunky-sounding modulation. Larger wander times can add more character, but make the reverb a little less smooth, which is ideal for vintage halls and other large space simulations. To disable the chorus, simply turn the amount control all the way counterclockwise. The Dynamics tab gives you access to a sophisticated dynamics processor for reverb compression and reverb ducking. You might already know these reverb shaping tools from other Liquid Sonics plugins such as Cinematic Rooms or Lustrous Plates. The Dynamics processor in Tai Chi can either affect only the late reverb or the entire wet signal, and you can set it to duck or compress. Exclusively applying the dynamics to the late reverb rather than the wet mix leaves the early reflections untouched, producing an improved sense of space and setting the dynamics in Tai Chi apart from many other reverbs out there. Ducking is a powerful technique that helps prevent a reverb from swamping the dry signal by compressing the verb until the musical phrase is ended. It can be extremely useful to create clarity in a mix and improve vocal intelligibility. On the other hand, reverb compression is your friend to make a reverb even thicker and denser. The compressor now reacts to its own reverb output rather than responding to the input signal on the sidechain. Regardless of whether you're ducking or compressing, the controls are the same and probably familiar to you if you've ever used a compressor. The difference lies in the position of the compressor in the signal path and what signal its level detector responds to. The output signal is reduced when it rises above the threshold at a rate determined by the ratio. The knee controls how gradually that ratio is applied. Attack and release control how quickly the compression begins to clamp down on the signal when it is above or below the threshold. Trim is a simple gain control for compensating the level lost by the ducking or compression so you can correctly A/B the effect. The gain reduction meter gives you a visual indication of how much compression is happening at a given moment. The Fidelity tab allows you to deliberately degrade the signal in several ways. Whether you use these parameters to match the grittiness of early digital reverb units or simply to add more character to a patch you've created, this is the place to get your hands dirty. The tab is split into three sections: Input, Bit Crusher, and Recirculation. The input bandwidth control applies brick wall filtering to the processor's inputs in a nod to those dramatic 8 to 10 kHz anti-aliasing filters of old that did so much to define the sound of many classic reverbs from the 1970s and 1980s. If you'd like to add more grit, head to the Bit Crusher section with dedicated controls for the output, reverb, and reflection signals. The output control affects the bit depth after the processing, while the reverb and reflection controls are applied at the input of the respective stages. As audio moves around the reverb loop, you can influence the depth of modulation and resolution with the controls in the recirculation section. Low resolution will cause audio within the loops to fuzz and eventually gate out as it falls below the bit depth horizon. Let's have some fun with an old school drum loop. The last tab in Tai Chi brings us to the Master EQ, which is invaluable for final reverb tone shaping. It features adjustable low and high shelving bands, plus low and high cuts. The filters provide sets of 4 different slopes from 6 dB to 24 dB per octave. The filters and EQ are great for cleaning up the low end of your reverb patch overall or for general tone control in the context of your mix. Understanding all of Tai Chi's building blocks might make creating your own reverb seem daunting at first. Fortunately though, the plugin comes with an extensive selection of presets to get you started quickly. Simply click on the preset name in the top section of the plugin to pull up the preset list and start browsing.
Chasing shadows down the road, clinging on to what I know. But if you hold me, I'll let go. This illusion of control.
You can also quickly move between presets using the left and right chevrons. Tai Chi is an enormously powerful reverb processor, but that can be rather taxing on the CPU at high channel counts. To make life just a little bit easier for those working in surround and Atmos, the factory preset library includes a bank of great sounding, high-efficiency programs that were designed to sound great without leaning too far into the most resource-intensive features. The AB button allows you to conveniently toggle between two reverb programs without the need to save a preset. If you find yourself wanting to preserve a tweaked program for later use, you can save a custom user preset. To do so, click on the preset list and navigate to the Manage User Presets section. A star next to the preset name indicates a modified but unsaved preset. The small lock icons on most controls allow you to lock a parameter when switching presets. By default, only the dry-wet control has parameter locking engaged. Before I let you go, I'd like to point out a couple of useful settings and preferences. You can scale the user interface in fixed steps to adjust its size according to your screen real estate and personal preferences. The preset menu offers important settings and options affecting the reverb processing. By default, the chorusing of the reflections follows the reverb chorus as set in the Advanced tab. But you can choose to uncouple the reflections, meaning you could turn off the early reflection chorusing entirely or only chorus the reflections, leaving the reverb tail with a different modulation style. This means on sources that usually struggle to accommodate chorusing, like a piano for example, you can avoid pitchiness on the exposed early reflections and just bring a light modulation in towards the end of the tail for a touch of richness without the obvious detuning. Different reverb algorithms treat the pre-delay differently. Sometimes the pre-delay parameter moves both the reflections and the later verb. Other times the reflections are locked relative to the dry signal. When you check Include Pre-delay in the reflection timing section, the pre-delay affects both the reflections and the reverb. Here's the same drum loop I had before, but this time I'm going to dial in a tempo-synced pre-delay to give it some nice bounce. Now, as you can hear, the pre-delay includes the reflections, which has dramatically separated the reverb from the drums. But check out what happens when I uncouple the reflection timing from the pre-delay. Back to our previous setting. Now we have natural reflections, but a really cool bounce to our late reverb. The reverb processing section allows switching between a true stereo or a mono to stereo topology. This changes the effects of pan tracking, and the latter reduces CPU load. Last but not at all least, I'd like to mention Tai Chi Lite. While it does not include Tai Chi's full set of advanced and creative tools, it's a very affordable and highly capable reverb that still delivers Tai Chi's rich and characterful tone, including the amazing chorus. Skipping the multiband multipliers, Fidelity, and dynamics processors, you can focus on the core controls and make Tai Chi the starting point of your production process. And of course, you can upgrade to the standard edition at any time if you find you can't resist going a little deeper. And that's a wrap for today. Thank you so much for watching this in-depth overview of Tai Chi. Please subscribe to our email list and social channels to be among the first to know when a new video or product update comes out. And don't forget to check out the other videos on our channels. Visit liquidsonics.com to download a free demo of Tai Chi and all our other reverb plugins today. See you next time, and happy mixing!